Anthony, Jesus Freak 777, has done it again. This time he has pitted his mighty intellect against the proponents, or rather the opponents, of Proposition 8. And his argument, you may ask, it's the same as always. The same argument that many fundamentalist Christians would put forward in the defense of Proposition 8, and that is, but think of the children. Anthony makes at least two mistakes when he presents his argument for Proposition 8. The first one is that he equivocates practical considerations around child rearing with some kind of a moral imperative. It is very easy for us to all agree that it is much better for a child to be brought up in a loving, extended family with supportive parents and supportive aunts and uncles and so on and so forth, than it would be for a child to be brought up all on their own, being moved from one foster family to another. But what that doesn't mean is that there is some sort of a moral imperative attached to this. Fostering is, in actual fact, a very generous thing to do. One of the most highly rated, in my opinion, altruistic acts that any person can ever engage in. To take on a child that has no other options left, and to bring it into your family and try to give it a home for some period is truly admirable. And if there are no options left, then that is the best thing to do. And it certainly isn't in any way, shape or form morally wrong. The same goes for single parent families. It is all well and good to say that it would be better for a child to be brought up in a family where both parents are present, but if that option isn't available, then what do? Isn't it much better that the child then at least has the access left to one loving parent, and that at least it can still share its life with that person? Wouldn't that be much better? And this is where he makes his second, and as I would call it, his fatal mistakes in his game of equivocation. He doesn't seem to realize that of all the alternatives that there are for raising a child, that not all of these alternatives are available to all children in the world. He seems to think that a child somehow has the option to choose whether it would be brought up, or maybe not that the child would have the option, but that the option would be available for a child to either be brought up in a loving nuclear family, mommy, daddy, and a large extended family, ideally, or to be brought up by a single parent or by a gay couple or something like that. Of course, nothing would be further from the truth, and that is what he is so deftly trying to brush under the carpet here. When you deny the right to marriage to a gay couple, it does not mean that their child then by default would revert back to being brought up in a loving nuclear family with mom and dad. No, it would actually result in that child now being brought up in a single parent family, or in a family with a lot less stability in it, because the two daddies or the two mummies now cannot get married. This would mean the child will now be brought up in a family where there is a lot less legal support available, a lot less of a safety net in case one of the parents dies. especially if its natural parent dies. But Jesus Freak doesn't think about those things, does he? He just thinks about what it says in the Bible, which was written 2000 years ago and which hasn't got a clue about the realities of life in the 21st century. And so he sits here, presenting his inane drivel of an argument to the world and expects us all to take it seriously.